we're going to be talking about cranking, but not any kind of cranking. We're going to specifically go over the nuts and bolts of cold water cranking. Cold water cranking. Guys, I gotta be honest with you. In terms of things that I consider are my favorite things to do in bass fishing, there's a couple that come to mind. And cold water cranking is right at the top of that list. Guys, I love it. I'm infatuated by it. I've been that way since I was a young fisherman. Now I'm an old guy, and I still love cold water cranking. Some of the things I love about it, the one is you're able to cover water. You're able to elicit a reaction strike even from fish that are in that cold water lethargic mode, okay? So I love cold water fishing where I don't have to just get a spinning rod and sit in one spot for an hour. I love the fact that I can cover water. I could let that cold water crankbait do its thing, and it's going to trigger these bass to bite even when that water is frigid, okay? All right, let's get into it. Let's talk about cold water and seasonality first for this cold water cranking. The name is obvious. You know, cold water to me, cold water cranking starts when that water gets into the low 50s, below mid 50s, you know, when that water temperature gets in that 51, 52, 53 degree range or cooler, that is cold water cranking. For sure, if you're watching this and you live in places where the water temperature gets into the 40s, it's dynamite, guys. This is a dynamite cranking system. If you're like me and you live in the North Country, sometimes our water temperature even gets into the 30s, and this cold water cranking is just as good. Okay, so seasonality, we're talking about late fall, you know, depending on where you live, October, November, all the way through the beginning of the spawning cycle, all the way through, you know, that late pre-spawn phase, which is April, March, April, May, depending on where you live, okay? So cold water cranking, let's call it low 50s all the way down, seasonality, late fall to pre-spawn, early spawn period. It's perfect, okay? Let's talk about what we want. And guys, pay attention. This is the part of this video where we're gonna rule out 90% of your crankbaits that you have in your box. 90% of the crankbaits, you go to Tackle Warehouse, you look on there, dude, they got a million crankbaits. We're gonna rule out 90% of those baits based on some factors on what you want in a cold water crankbait, okay? So let's just start. We don't even have to go in order, but let's just start. Number one, the biggest thing I want, guys, in a cold water crankbait, the biggest thing that I want is a tighter, more inline vibration, okay? Simple as that. As that water gets cold, I want to get away from the bigger wobble crankbaits. As that water gets real cold, I want to tighten that wobble up so it's super tight. I want the wobble and the vibration of that crankbait to be tight. Tight wobble, not a wide wobble, okay? Hot water, wide wobble. Moderate temperature water, moderate wobble. Cold water, tight wobble, guys. Tight I call it inline, almost an inline movement to the crankbait. Okay, so cold water, tighter wobble. How do you know? All right, how do you know? You go to Tackle Warehouse, you look on there's 1,000 baits, you got descriptions for sure, that'll help you, but general rule of thumb, guys, the flatter the body of that crankbait, the flatter and thinner the body of that crankbait, the tighter the wobble, okay? The fatter the body, if this was a crankbait and it had a fat, wide body, the bigger the vibration, the bigger the wobble, okay? So the first thing we could look at, we could generalize, is we're looking for a flatter style crankbait, a flat bait, a flat crankbait, right? A flat side. I heard it called flat sides a lot. And this pretty much is the perfect bait to have those attributes of a tighter wobble. And that's the Fritz side. This is the Berkley Fritz side. Look at that body, guys. It's flat, it's very flat. It's not wide, it's a flat body bait, okay? So the body style gives it away. The next thing that'll give away that flatter, tighter vibration, tighter wobble is the bill, okay? The bill. And generally, if you look at the bill on these baits, let me see if I get my hand up here and show you. We've got a bill that is more in line with the body, okay? Doesn't have a severe angle to it, right? We've seen crankbaits for sure where that bill is really angled downward. And when you look at that bill, it's almost in line with the body. Not quite, but it's almost in line with the body of the bait. So those inline bills, and especially those bills that when you look at the bill, it's thinner. It's not a big fat bill, a lot of plastic. This is a thin little bill. Some of them are plastic. Some of them, I've seen the circuit board lips, very good lip for a cold water crankbait. But the second way is look at that bill. If it's more inline, more even with the line tie, right? That's just slightly angled down from the line tie. The tighter the vibration, okay? Number one thing on a cold water crankbait, guys, is vibration. We want it tight, okay? Number two, again, think about it. We're going to rule out 90% of the crankbaits by these descriptors. Number two, in the cold water period, when I'm cranking, I want a crankbait that has no rattles. No rattles. Zero rattles. Guys, I don't want rattles. I don't want loud. I don't want to shake it. It sounds like... I want a more silent bait. Even if it has a rattle, I want that rattle to be just more like just a little knock, okay? The Fritz sides, the Berkley Fritz sides, they sell in a silent version and they sell it in a rattling version. But for me, in cold water, I want to eliminate that sound. I want to get rid of that sound, okay, guys? So number two is I want a silent crankbait. These are both Fritz side, size 5s. And shake that bait. The only sound is the hooks hitting the body. Or, or if it hits an object, it's going to make a sound, right? Still has sound, but it's not loud. It's not obtrusive, right? Tighter wobble, quiet, perfect attributes for a cold water crankbait. All right, guys, last but not least, in picking this bait, this is the most important part, we're going to eliminate 90% of them. This third thing is as important, if not more important than the first two things we talked about. tight wobble, no rattles, no sound. But number 3 is big time cold water cranking juice. And number 3, guys, is we want to select a bait that has a slow float rate all the way to almost a neutral buoyancy, even a slow sink. And we're going to talk a little bit about how to modify that to make it do that. But I don't want a crankbait in the winter that when you stop it, it goes and floats back up to the top really quick. So I don't want a high buoyancy bait, okay? In the post spawn, in the summer, in the early fall, if I'm square billing, real shallow, if I'm cranking a deep weed edge, I want that bait to back out quick. I want it to float quick. But when that water gets 52, 53 degrees or cooler, dude, I want that crankbait, tight wobble, no rattles, to come by, and when I deflect off a rock, I want to stop it, and it just goes like this. Barely floats up, or in some cases, hits and just sits there like a suspending jerkbait, almost neutral buoyancy, okay? So slow float, slow rise to your plugs, key in the wintertime, okay? And the Fritz side's nice because it does it out of the package, okay? Very, very slow floating crankbait, almost neutral buoyancy crankbait, okay? All right, that's what we want in a crankbait. Lots of brands out there, guys. But the Fritz side for me has been a home run, okay? And this next topic I'm gonna talk about really quick, but I wanna make sure you know because it is important, is picking the right depth of that crankbait, okay? So in the Fritz side, guys, we have, look at that. We have 5 different sizes. And if you look, the body of the bait and the bill size changes in each of those baits, okay? So we've got a 5 junior, perfect bait in that 1, 2 to 3 foot zone, especially if you're trying to imitate smaller bait fish. Junior is great. We've got the regular number 5 Fritz side. This is the most popular. Great in that 3 to 4, 5 foot zone. Perfect. We've got the 5 biggin. Perfect in that 5, 6 to 7 foot zone. Bigger body, bigger bill. And then we've got the 2 bigger lipped Fritz sides. We've got the 7, perfect for that 7, 8 foot zone to 9 foot zone. Then we've got the Fritz side 9. The bill is almost perfectly in line, still tight, still silent, still slow float. But now we can hit that 9, 10, 11, 12 foot zone. Really nice, okay? Now here's why I explained all that. Just like summer cranking or spring or fall cranking, when I'm cold water cranking, 90% of the time, I still want that bait touching whatever I'm fishing, okay? A lot of times in the cold water period, I'm trying to deflect it off of cover, whatever that available cover is. A lot of times it's rock, it's gravel. A lot of times it's harder bottom where a channel swings into the bank, and I'm trying to get that plug to tick the rock or the gravel or the wood. Or if you're cold water cranking and there's grass around, dude, you want that crankbait touching that grass. You want it hitting that eelgrass, the milfoil, the hydrilla, the coontail, whatever it is. You want it touching, sometimes even getting stuck where it gets caught and you just hit your rod and it pops out of it. And remember, it'll just sit there, right? Okay? So I want the bait touching something. The bottom, the cover. If I'm in that 10%, when I throw this bait out there and it doesn't touch anything, I still want to make this bait change direction a little bit. And we're going to talk about that with the retrieve in a second. But pick the bill that allows you to maintain contact with the cover or the bottom, okay? Very, very important. All right, real quick, colors, and then I want to get into the rod, the reel, and that cast, that retrieve, and that's real key. Colors, guys, keep it natural. Whatever they're eating in the cold water, imitate that. In general, guys, in general, I carry pearls and whites and shads when it's bait fish. I carry reds and browns when they're feeding on crawfish. And I always carry a few of those chartreuse pattern baits when it's bluegill or yellow perch or something that's brighter. I love the chartreuse, and in muddy water as well. Okay, so keep the color selection simple. All right, now here's the juice, guys. Let's talk about the retrieve, and then I'll get into the rod and reel. But the bait, certainly very important part of the formula. The retrieve, even more important when we're cold water cranking. All right, there's that frit side tied on. And I'm going to throw it out there. I'm going to give you just a real generic example, but this retrieve is going to be key, okay? We already said it, so let's just keep on that one. We're fishing a channel swing bank where the channel swings into the bank. The bank's got a little bit more of a 45-degree angle on it. And I want this crankbait to hit and ease down that break, okay? So I'm quarter casting the bank. As I start that retrieve, I'm going to regular retrieve it 5 or 8 cranks. And the reason I'm doing that, regular speed, like I would rest of the year, is I want to let that bait for about 5 or 8 cranks achieve its depth. Once it achieves its depth, guys, this is cold water cranking 101. Bump your retrieve down a lot. And it's slow to moderately slow to a slow crawl. That's the best example I can give you. So throw it out there, quarter cast that bank, 5 or 8 turns normal, and then I'm slowing down. And I'm creeping it. I'm getting more methodical. I'm getting just really in low gear and crawling that crankbait around. And on purpose, I'm trying to make that crankbait hit something, okay? So I slow down. A lot of times as I'm slowing that retrieve, I'll actually stop and I'll give it little pulls to the side. Right? So make that cast, 5 winds, 6 winds, slow down. As I get slow, every once in a while I'll stop, I'll pull it, I'll start to retrieve again, slow, I'll stop, I'll pull it. And I'm trying to slow it down and hit stuff. And guys, the second that I feel this bait hit something, a rock, a stump, the gravel, the bottom, a twig, a piece of vegetation, a blade of eelgrass, anything, I'm gonna totally stop and I'm gonna count to 3. 1, 2, 3. If I don't get bit, I'm gonna pull it and start that slow methodical retrieve again. Pull it, start that methodical retrieve until I hit something else. But guys, in cold water, that bait deflecting, and then when you pause for 3 seconds, it barely floats up or sits. That is the movement that's going to trigger these cold water bass. Super, super critical, okay? 90% of the time, I'm gonna let the bait do that. Now, we talked about real quick, the 10% of the time, if you throw out there and the water's deeper than the bait can get, or there's not a lot of stuff to hit, I'm gonna actually just use my rod and I'm gonna pull it, and on that pull, instead of going right back into that slow methodical retrieve, after the pull, I'm gonna pause it for 3 seconds and then start that retrieve back up, okay? So even when there's nothing to hit, throw pauses into it and let that bait slowly rise and then start your retrieve again. 3-second count is a good one to start with. The colder the water, might have to go a little longer. The warmer the water, maybe a little shorter, but 3-second rule is a good one. All right, rod and reel, guys, and then I'm gonna give you 2 quick modifications. I want the same exact rod and reel you'd use for cranking in the summer or spring or hot water. In general, I want a medium action rod, okay? I love the glass composite rods. They're very soft, but a medium action. This one's an Abu Garcia Ike series. It's a 7-foot rod, I love it. And then on the reel, go to a moderate to slow gear ratio. And that's mainly to slow you down, to force you to slow down. So a 7-to-1, this is Abu Garcia Ike series, 7-to-1 or lower. A 6-8, a 6-6, 6-4-to-1, all great wintertime reel retrieve rates. And last but not least, let's talk about the line. Guys, wintertime crankbait fishing, I don't know what other way to put it. You want fluorocarbon. So I'm cranking with 8 to 15 pound fluoro. A lot of times I'm in that 10, but 12 is the #1 line size for me for wintertime cranking. And again, the reason that fluorocarbon's gonna help that bait not sink, but neutrally rise, okay? So fluorocarbon, that's what you want. All right, last thing is 2 modifications real quick on this Fritz side I want to show you. And the first one is, the Fritz side's nice because it has these, they call them little flash discs on the bottom. And those little discs are like suspend dots that are built into the bait. And that's what's going to help it float slow. If I'm using a shad or pearl or white bait, I leave those discs silver. But if I'm using a red or a crawfish or a chartreuse colored bait, guys, I just color those little discs, okay? So here's a red bait, so I can get that red bait. That disc is silver. I'll get my little red Sharpie or Spike It pen, and I'll color that disc red or orange to blend in with the bait. Chartreuse, whatever. You can do it black if you want to, whatever you want to do. I like matching the color of that disc to the bait. The last suggestion is, and especially if you're using other crankbaits, not the Fritz side, something that maybe has a higher float rate, is don't be afraid to go up 1 size in your hooks, especially on the belly hook, okay? So by changing that belly hook, that's a number 5 on a Fritz side 5. If I change to a size 4, I'm gonna slow the buoyancy of that bait. So you can really dial this in, guys, just by changing hooks. Go to 1 size bigger, start with the belly. If it's still floating too fast, put a bigger size on the tail, and you can get that bait to slowly rise or even be a neutral buoyancy bait, okay? Guys, cold water cranking is so fun. You do not have to dead stick in cold water. Even when the water is in the 40s, 50s, low 50s, you can still catch them cranking. Try some of those tips. I think you're gonna get more bites, especially when the water's cold. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this shop talking about cold water cranking. If you like what you hear, hit the subscribe button. Subscribe to the channel. If you're already subscribed, do me a favor. Tell your buddies about the channel. It's Mike Iaconelli Fishing. We're here to hopefully help you learn a couple things. Good luck, good fishing. Try those tactics, and I think you're going to catch more bass. Bye.